I thought it would just be another boring corporate event. The kind where people pretended to care about charity while really networking for their next business deal. I was only there because my friend Marcus begged me to fill in as a photographer's assistant. The pay was decent and I needed rent money. So there I stood, adjusting lights and fetching equipment, trying not to look as out of place as I felt among all these suits and designer dresses. But then I saw him, a small boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, sitting alone in the corner of this massive ballroom. He was wearing a tiny navy blue suit that looked expensive but somehow sat on him. His fingers moved methodically over a red toy car, spinning its wheels again and again. What struck me wasn't just that he was alone, it was the way everyone seemed to actively avoid looking at him, like he was invisible. I watched as a woman nearly tripped over his outstretched leg, muttered something annoyed, and kept walking without even glancing down. The boy didn't react. He just kept playing with that car, lost in his own silent world. Something pulled at my chest. That kind of loneliness wasn't right for anyone, especially not a child. I had a sign language certificate gathering dust in my drawer at home. I'd taken the class 3 years ago, thinking it would make my resume look more impressive. I'd honestly forgotten most of it, but seeing this kid sitting there completely isolated in a room full of hundreds of people made me want to try. I set down the camera bag and walked over slowly, not wanting to startle him. When I got close enough, I crouched down to his level and carefully formed the signs with my hands. "What is your name?" His head snapped up so fast I almost fell backward. For the first time since I'd noticed him, his eyes came alive. They were bright green, wide with disbelief and something that looked like desperate hope. He stared at my hands like they were performing magic. Then slowly and deliberately, he signed back, "Mikhail." My heart hammered in my chest. This little boy had been sitting here the entire evening and I was probably the first person who'd even attempted to communicate with him. I smiled and signed again. "That is a very cool car. My name is Derek." Mikhail's whole face transformed. He actually smiled, a genuine, beautiful smile that made him look exactly like the happy kid he should have been. He held out the car to me with both hands, offering it shyly. It was such a simple gesture, but it felt monumental. Like he was asking, "Will you really stay? Will you really play with me?" I took the car gently and rolled it across the marble floor between us. Mikhail's eyes followed it, and he laughed, a silent, breathy laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. We passed the car back and forth, and for those few minutes, the crowded ballroom faded away. It was just us, two people actually seeing each other. Then a shadow fell across us. I looked up and my breath caught. The man standing over us was tall, easily over 6 feet, with a presence that commanded attention without effort. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, probably worth more than my entire wardrobe combined. But it was his face that stopped me, sharp jawline, dark hair swept back and eyes the color of storm clouds. Cold, calculating, fixed directly on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Who are you?" His voice was low, controlled, but carried an unmistakable edge of authority. I stood up quickly, suddenly very aware that I was in borrowed dress pants and a shirt that didn't quite fit right. "I'm Derek." I was just Mikhail seemed lonely, so I thought I'd say hello. Those gray eyes scanned me from head to toe, evaluating, judging. "You know sign language?" "Yes," I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. "I learned it in college." Something shifted in his expression, though calling it softening would be too generous. He looked down at Mikhail, who was still holding the toy car and watching our interaction with cautious eyes. The boy's earlier happiness had dimmed slightly, replaced by weariness. The man's gaze returned to me. "Don't move from this spot." It wasn't a request. It was an order, delivered with the casual confidence of someone who expected immediate obedience. He walked several feet away and pulled out his phone, speaking in low tones I couldn't hear over the ballroom's ambient noise. I looked back at Mikhail and signed, "Who is that man?" Mikhail's response was simple, "My papa." That information settled over me like a weight. This intimidating, ice-cold man was this sweet, lonely child's father. I watched him on the phone, his posture rigid, his expression unreadable. Everything about him screamed power and control. Everything except the way his eyes had briefly softened when he'd looked at Mikhail. When he returned, his expression had shifted to something marginally less hostile. "I'm Cyrus Hale." He introduced himself, offering no hand to shake. "Mikkel's father. We need to talk." "About what?" I asked, confused. "Not here." He glanced around the ballroom with barely concealed distaste. "The event is ending soon. Meet me in the Riverside Lounge on the second floor in 20 minutes. Before I could respond, he turned to Mikkel and signed something I couldn't quite catch. Mikkel nodded and signed back, then looked at me with those hopeful green eyes again. Cyrus straightened. 20 minutes, Mr. Evans. Derek Evans. 20 minutes, Mr. Evans." He placed a hand on Mikkel's shoulder and guided him away. But not before Mikkel turned and waved at me an actual, genuine wave. I stood there, toy car still in my hand, completely bewildered. What had just happened? More importantly, what did Cyrus Hale want to talk to me about? Marcus found me 15 minutes later, looking annoyed. "Where have you been?" "We're packing up." "I know, I'm sorry. Something came up." He noticed the toy car. "Did you steal from a kid?" "What?" "No." I looked down at it. "I need to return this. Give me 10 minutes. Marcus sighed dramatically. "Fine. But make it quick. I want to get out of here before traffic hits." I took the elevator to the second floor, my palms sweating. The Riverside Lounge was quieter, more intimate, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. Cyrus sat in a leather chair, Mikkel beside him with a tablet, drawing something with intense concentration. When Cyrus saw me, he stood. "Mr. Evans. Thank you for coming." "I brought Mikkel's car back," I said, holding it out. Mikkel's face lit up, and he took it carefully, signing a quick thank you. Cyrus watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. Then he said something that would change everything. "I need to hire you." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "For Mikkel. I need someone who can communicate with him the way you did tonight." His gray eyes held mine. "I need someone like you. I need someone like you." Cyrus Hale's words hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I couldn't quite grasp yet. We were still in the Riverside Lounge, the city lights glittering behind him like stars, and Mikkel was absorbed in his tablet, occasionally glancing up at us with curious eyes. I shifted my weight, unsure how to respond. "Mr. Hale, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking." "Sit." He gestured to the chair across from him. It was phrased as an invitation but felt like a command. I sat. Cyrus leaned back, fingers steepled in front of him, a posture that screamed boardroom negotiations. "Mikkel is deaf. He's been working with therapists and specialists since he was 2, but progress has been limited, not because of his abilities," he added quickly, a defensive edge creeping into his voice, "but because most people don't have the patience or genuine interest to truly connect with him." I glanced at Mikkel, who was drawing what looked like a park on his tablet. "He seems incredibly bright." "He is." For the first time, Cyrus's expression softened with unmistakable pride. "But intelligence means nothing when the world refuses to meet you where you are." Tonight was the first time in months I've seen him genuinely happy around a stranger. My chest tightened at that. "That's heartbreaking." "It's reality." Cyrus's tone sharpened back to business. "Which brings me to my proposition. I need a tutor for Mikkel, someone who can work with him daily, help him develop his language skills, and more importantly, someone he actually wants to spend time with." I opened my mouth to protest, but he continued. "I'm aware you're not a certified educator. I've done my research in the 15 minutes since we met." "Yes." That quickly. He pulled out his phone and showed me a screen I couldn't quite read from this distance. "Derek Evans, 26, graduated from Morrison State with a degree in graphic design. Currently freelancing, though based on your LinkedIn, it's been sparse work lately. You took ASL courses during your junior year but never pursued it professionally." Heat crept up my neck. Having my life summarized so clinically was unsettling. "That's thorough. I don't make decisions without information." He set his phone down. "Your qualifications on paper are irrelevant. What matters is that in 5 minutes you did something dozens of trained professionals couldn't do. You made my son feel seen." The weight of that statement settled over me. I looked at Mikkel again, this sweet kid who'd been invisible to an entire ballroom of people. "I'd like to help, but I'm not qualified to." "Name your rate." I stopped mid-sentence. "What?" Whatever you were going to say about qualifications, I don't care. Name your rate and I'll double it. My mind raced. I was 3 weeks behind on rent. My laptop was dying and I'd been living on ramen and hope. But this felt too big, too important to mess up. Mr. Hale, with all respect, I can't just 5,000 a week. The air left my lungs. I'm sorry, did you say? 5,000. Plus benefits if you work more than 3 months. You'll have access to all the resources you need. Books, materials, whatever helps Mikkel learn. Cyrus watched my shocked expression with something almost resembling amusement. Is that sufficient motivation to reconsider your qualifications speech? I did the math in my head. That was more than I made in 2 months of freelancing. That's incredibly generous. I'm not being generous. I'm being practical. My son's well-being is worth infinitely more than money. His expression hardened slightly. But understand this, Mr. Evans. If you accept, I expect commitment. Mikhail doesn't need another person who'll drift in and out of his life. He needs consistency. There was something beneath his words, a pain he wasn't naming. I wondered who else had drifted out of Mikhail's life. What would the schedule look like? I asked, my practical side kicking in despite my spinning head. Weekday mornings, 9 to 2. Flexibility as needed. You'll work primarily at my home, though occasional outings for educational purposes would be expected. He paused. And one more thing. Mikkel's privacy is paramount. No social media. No discussing him with anyone outside necessary professionals. I will not have my son become tabloid fodder. That last part carried weight that suggested personal experience. I nodded slowly. I understand. Cyrus studied me for a long moment. You have reservations. Voice them. I appreciated the directness. What happens if it doesn't work out? If Mikkel and I don't click the way you think we will, then we reassess. But you get paid regardless for your time. He leaned forward. However, I don't think that'll be an issue. As if on cue, Mikkel tugged on his father's sleeve and signed something. Cyrus responded. Then Mikkel turned to me and signed, "Will you come to my house tomorrow?" His eyes were so full of hope, it physically hurt to look at him. I glanced at Cyrus, who watched the interaction with barely concealed intensity. I turned back to Mikkel and signed, "If your papa wants me to, yes." Mikkel's smile could have powered the city below us. "Is that a yes, Mr. Evans?" Cyrus asked. I took a deep breath, feeling like I was standing on the edge of a cliff about to jump. "Yes, I'll do it." Cyrus extended his hand. When I shook it, his grip was firm, assured. "My driver will collect you at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Text me your address." He handed me a business card with his personal number written on the back in sharp, precise handwriting. "Should I prepare anything specific?" I asked, pocketing the card. "Just yourself. We'll handle the rest." He stood, signaling the meeting was over. Mikkel hopped down from his chair and, to my surprise, gave me a small, shy hug before retreating behind his father. I left the lounge in a daze, my phone clutched in my hand with Cyrus Hale's number already saved. Marcus was waiting by the service elevator, tapping his foot impatiently. "Finally. What took so long?" "I just got hired," I said, still processing. "Hired? By who?" I looked back toward the lounge, where through the glass I could see Cyrus lifting Mikkel onto his shoulders. "Cyrus Hale." Marcus's jaw dropped. The Cyrus Hale? The billionaire CEO Cyrus Hale. Apparently. To do what? I smiled despite my nervousness. To teach his son. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mikkel's smile, Cyrus's intense gray eyes, and the fact that tomorrow my entire life was about to change in ways I couldn't possibly predict. The car that picked me up the next morning wasn't just nice, it was ridiculous. A sleek black Mercedes with leather seats that probably cost more than my yearly income. The driver, a quiet man named Thomas, made polite small talk about weather before lapsing into comfortable silence. When we pulled through the gates of Cyrus's estate, I pressed my face against the window like a kid. Calling it a house felt insulting. It was a modern architectural masterpiece. All clean lines and enormous windows, surrounded by manicured gardens that could have been in magazines. Thomas walked me to the front door, which opened before we could knock. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair smiled at me. "You must be Derek." "I'm Helen." The house manager. Come in, please. The interior was even more impressive. High ceilings, minimal but expensive furniture, and artwork that looked original. Helen led me through to a bright sunroom where Mikhail sat at a low table with various toys and books scattered around him. His face transformed when he saw me. He jumped up and signed. "You came. I promised, didn't I?" I signed back, grinning. Helen watched this exchange with visible approval. "Mr. Hale is finishing a call in his office. He'll join you shortly. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea? Coffee would be great, thank you." She left, and I sat down with Mikhail, who immediately began showing me a book about dinosaurs. We went through it page by page, me signing the names of each creature, Mikhail correcting my finger spelling when I got it wrong. His knowledge was impressive. He knew not just names but facts about their diets, periods, extinction theories. "You really love dinosaurs." I signed. He nodded enthusiastically and signed back, "Especially the flying ones." "Pterodactyls?" His smile widened. "Yes. Nobody else knows the right name." Something about that statement gutted me. This brilliant kid was so starved for basic connection that someone knowing the proper term for a pterodactyl felt special to him. We were deep into a debate about whether pterodactyls were technically dinosaurs. They weren't, but Mikhail argued they should count anyway. When I felt eyes on us, I looked up to find Cyrus standing in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, watching. Our eyes met, and something electric passed between us before he looked away. "Good morning, Mr. Evans." "Morning," I replied, standing awkwardly. "And please just Derek." He considered this. "Derek, then. I see Mikhail's already recruited you into the great dinosaur debate. He's got strong opinions about prehistoric classification," I said, which made Mikhail giggle silently. Cyrus's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "He comes by that honestly. His mother was a paleontology professor." Was. Past tense. I caught it but didn't push. Helen arrived with my coffee and Cyrus outlined the day's expectations. Reading practice, number games, some physical activity in the garden. "I'll be in my office if you need anything, though Helen can answer most questions." "You're not staying?" The words came out before I could stop them. Cyrus paused, something unreadable crossing his face. "I have work, and Mikhail needs space to bond with you without me hovering." But the way he said it suggested he wasn't entirely comfortable with that plan. He knelt beside Mikhail and signed something I couldn't quite follow. "Too fast, too personal." Mikhail nodded and hugged him tightly. When Cyrus stood, his jaw was set in that controlled way that suggested buried emotion. After he left, the day flowed surprisingly naturally. Mikhail was a quick learner, patient with my still rusty signing, and creative in ways that consistently surprised me. We built block towers and knocked them down, practiced writing letters in shaving cream, Helen's suggestion, and spent an hour in the garden looking for bugs. During lunch, Helen told me stories about Mikhail, how he'd memorized every book in his room, how he'd once tried to build a robot from kitchen utensils, how he loved thunderstorms but hated the vacuum cleaner. Each story painted a picture of a remarkable kid who'd been dealt an unfair hand by the world. Around 2 o'clock, when we were cleaning up our art supplies, I noticed Cyrus watching again from a different doorway. This time he didn't hide it. "How was his focus today?" he asked, stepping into the room. "Incredible. We worked for nearly 40 minutes straight on the alphabet puzzle." Cyrus's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's longer than he's managed with anyone else." Mikhail, oblivious to being discussed, was arranging his toy cars by color on the shelf. Cyrus watched him with such unguarded tenderness that I felt like an intruder on something private. "He's exceptional," I said quietly. "You know that, right?" Cyrus's eyes snapped to me. "Yes. I don't think everyone has told you that enough." Something in his expression cracked, just for a second before the careful mask returned. "Thank you for today. Thomas will drive you home whenever you're ready." That became our routine. 5 days a week, I'd arrive at 8:30 and leave around 2. Mikhail and I developed our own language beyond signs, inside jokes, made-up games, a whole private world, and Cyrus. Cyrus remained at a distance but never quite absent. I'd catch him watching from doorways, lingering nearby, finding excuses to check in. 2 weeks in, everything shifted. I was in the kitchen getting Mikhail a snack when Cyrus entered, loosening his tie. It was the first time I'd seen him in anything less than perfectly composed. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his hair slightly mussed. Long day? I asked, slicing apple wedges. Conference calls with Tokyo. Time zones are not my friend. He poured himself water from the fridge, standing close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive with notes of cedar and citrus. Mikhail's napping, I offered. He crashed after we spent an hour running around the garden. Cyrus smiled. A real smile, small but genuine. You're good for him. I wasn't sure at first, but you're good for him. He makes it easy. He's an amazing kid. He is. Cyrus set down his glass and turned to face me fully. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you approach him that night? At the gala? Most people would have walked past. I thought about it. Because I know what it's like to be invisible. Different circumstances, but loneliness looks the same on everyone. Cyrus studied me with those intense gray eyes. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone doing this for the paycheck. Someone who'd see Mikhail as a job, not a person. He stepped closer. But you actually care about him. Of course I do. That's rare. His voice dropped lower. Rarer than you realize. We were standing too close. I knew it, he knew it. Neither of us moved. Cyrus, I started, unsure what I was even going to say. Don't. The word was soft but firm. Whatever you're about to say, just don't. But his eyes said something different. His eyes said, please do. The moment stretched, taut and fragile. Then Mikhail's voice, a small, sleepy sound, came from the living room. We stepped apart like we'd been burned. Cyrus cleared his throat. I have more calls. Right. Yeah. He left quickly, and I stood there with my heart hammering, wondering what the hell had just almost happened. I told myself I'd keep things professional. That lasted about 3 weeks before Mikhail made it impossible. Every day he grew more attached. Not in a clingy way, but in a way that made my chest ache. He'd save drawings to show me, wait by the window for my arrival, and his face would crumble with disappointment. On weekends when I wasn't there. And Cyrus? He went in the opposite direction. After that charged moment in the kitchen, he became a ghost in his own house. He'd leave before I arrived, come home after I'd gone, communicate through Helen or brief text messages. The few times we did cross paths, he'd nod curtly and disappear into his office like I was contagious. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. One Thursday afternoon, Mikhail tugged my sleeve and signed, "Come see my room. I made something for you." His bedroom was massive but felt lived in, unlike the pristine showroom aesthetic of the rest of the house. Posters of space and dinosaurs covered one wall, books overflowed from shelves, and a large desk held various art projects in different stages of completion. Mikhail pulled out a leather-bound sketchbook and opened it carefully. My breath caught. The pages were filled with drawings, some in crayon, others in colored pencil, but all unmistakably depicting me. Me reading to him, me pushing him on the garden swing, me and him feeding ducks at the pond. Each image was detailed beyond what I'd expect from a 5-year-old, capturing not just appearances but emotions. In every single one, we were both smiling. The last page made my eyes burn. It showed 3 figures, Mikhail in the middle, me on one side, Cyrus on the other. We were holding hands. Above it, in careful letters, my family. Mikhail, my voice came out rough. This is the most beautiful thing anyone's ever made for me. He signed quickly, his small hands moving with urgent intensity. You understand me. Nobody else ever does. Not the therapists, not the teachers before, just you. I pulled him into a hug, feeling his small body shake with silent emotion. I'll always understand you, I signed when we pulled apart. That's a promise. He smiled through tears and signed, forever, forever. We spent another hour in his room, him showing me his rock collection, his books, the model solar system hanging from his ceiling. When it was finally time for me to leave, he walked me downstairs, holding my hand. Cyrus stood in the foyer, briefcase in hand, clearly just arriving home. His eyes went immediately to our joined hands, and something flickered across his face too quick to name. Derek. His voice was clipped. My office. Now. Mikhail looked between us, confused. I squeezed his hand and signed, I'll see you tomorrow, okay? He nodded reluctantly and headed toward the kitchen where Helen was preparing dinner. I followed Cyrus to his office, my stomach knotting. He closed the door with controlled force and turned on me. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" I blinked. "I'm not sure what." "He's becoming dependent on you." Cyrus's words were sharp, cutting. "Emotionally dependent in a way that's not healthy." "What happens when this ends?" "Why would it end?" I shot back, my own frustration rising. "Because everything ends." His composure cracked, voice rising. "His mother left when he was barely walking. Said she couldn't handle having a broken child. Every therapist we've hired has lasted 6 months maximum before finding excuses to quit. You think you're different?" The pain beneath his anger was palpable. "I'm not going anywhere." "You say that now." He laughed bitterly. "They all say that. Then reality sets in. The long-term commitment, the challenges, the judgment from others, and they leave. And Mikkel is the one who suffers. I'm not them." My voice matched his volume now. "I care about that kid. Genuinely care. Not because you're paying me, but because he's amazing and deserves someone who sees that." Cyrus stared at me, jaw clenched. The silence stretched, painful and heavy. Then he took a step toward me. Another. Until he was close enough that I could see the storm in his gray eyes, smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from him. "And what if it's not just about Mikkel?" His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. My heart slammed against my ribs. "What?" "You know exactly what I mean." His gaze dropped to my lips. Then back up. "This whatever this is between us, it complicates everything." "Cyrus," he kissed me. Not gentle, not tentative. Desperate and hungry, like he'd been holding back for weeks and finally snapped. His hand came up to cup my jaw, thumb brushing my cheekbone, and I melted into it despite every logical thought screaming that this was a terrible idea. I kissed him back just as desperately, my hands fisting in his expensive shirt, pulling him closer. He tasted like coffee and something darker, more complex. When his tongue swept against mine, I made a sound I'd be embarrassed about later. We broke apart gasping. Cyrus pressed his forehead against mine, eyes closed, breathing ragged. "This is insane," he whispered. "I know. I'm your employer. You work with my son. I know. This could destroy everything. I know." I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "But I'm not sorry it happened." His gray eyes searched mine for a long moment. Then his hand, still cupping my face, trembled slightly. "I haven't felt anything in years. Not since she left. I built walls specifically to never feel this vulnerable again." "Cyrus. But you." His thumb traced my lower lip. "You walk in here with your terrible jokes and your patience and your genuine kindness, and suddenly I'm feeling everything. And it terrifies me." The raw honesty in his voice cracked something open in my chest. "I'm scared too. This is the most important job I've ever had. Mikkel needs stability, and if we mess this up, we can't mess this up." His voice turned fierce. "Mikkel comes first. Always. No matter what happens between us, he comes first." "Agreed," I said firmly. "He's the priority." Cyrus nodded, then seemed to realize he was still holding my face. He dropped his hand but didn't step back. "We need rules. Boundaries. Okay. Nothing in front of Mikkel. Nothing that could confuse or upset him." "Of course. And if at any point this affects your relationship with him negatively, we stop." "Absolutely." He studied me again, then made a decision. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining carefully, like he was handling something precious and breakable. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted quietly. "I'm not good at this." I squeezed his hand. "We'll figure it out together." For the first time since that night in the kitchen, he smiled, small but real. Together, we stood there for another moment, hands linked, both aware we'd just crossed a line we couldn't uncross. The smart thing would be to step back, pretend it never happened, maintain professional distance. Neither of us did the smart thing. When I finally left that night, Thomas drove me home in the usual silence. But my phone buzzed halfway there. "Cyrus, thank you. For everything. For Mikkel. For today. Me. Thank you for trusting me. Cyrus. I do. More than I've trusted anyone in a very long time." I stared at that message for the rest of the ride, my heart doing complicated things in my chest. I was falling for both of them, The quiet, brilliant boy and his guarded, complicated father, and I had no idea how this would end. We were careful. For 3 weeks we were so careful. Nothing in front of Mikhail or Helen. Quick touches when we passed in hallways, stolen kisses in his office after Mikhail was in bed, late-night phone calls that lasted until dawn. It felt like being a teenager again, sneaking around, hearts racing at every near miss. Mikhail remained oblivious and happier than ever. He'd started a new program at a specialized school 3 days a week, making friends with other kids who signed. His confidence bloomed. He'd initiate conversations with Helen, show off new signs he learned, even started talking to Thomas during our drives. Watching him thrive made everything worth it. But we got sloppy. It was a Saturday, my day off technically, but Cyrus had asked if I wanted to join them at the park. As friends, he'd said carefully. Mikhail's been asking. The park was beautiful, still cold enough that our breath fogged, but sunny. Mikhail ran ahead to the playground while Cyrus and I walked slowly behind, maintaining careful distance. He asked me something yesterday, Cyrus said quietly. What? If I liked you? He glanced at me from the corner of his eye. Not as his tutor, as more. My stomach flipped. What did you tell him? The truth. That I think you're remarkable. He paused. He said he hoped I'd marry you someday so you'd stay forever. I nearly tripped over my own feet. He said that? 5-year-olds have no filter. But Cyrus was smiling. He also asked if that meant you'd live with us and if he could have a puppy. I laughed despite my racing heart. One life change at a time. Cyrus's expression turned serious. Would you want that someday? Before I could answer, Mikhail called us over, signing excitedly about the slide. We joined him, the heavy conversation tabled. That's when I saw the camera. A man across the park, long lens pointed directly at us. My blood went cold. Cyrus, I said quietly. Don't react, but there's a photographer at 3 o'clock. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He signed to Mikhail that it was time to go, keeping his voice cheerful, but as we walked to the car, I felt the weight of that lens following us. The photos hit the internet by evening. I was scrolling through my phone when my notifications exploded. Twitter, Instagram, news alerts. My hands shook as I opened the first article. Billionaire CEO Cyrus Hale's secret romance. Male nanny caught in intimate moment. The photos were damning. One showed Cyrus smiling at me, a genuine soft smile I'd never seen him give anyone else. Another caught me touching his arm. The angle made it look more intimate than it was, but that didn't matter. The internet had decided what story to tell. The comments were vicious. What about his son? This is sick. Using that poor deaf child to get to his rich dad. Disgusting. Gold digger alert. I felt physically ill. My phone rang. My mom, my brother, old college friends I hadn't spoken to in years. I ignored them all. Then Cyrus called. Don't come to the house tomorrow. His voice was flat, emotionless. I'm handling this. Cyrus, we should talk. There's nothing to talk about. The situation needs to be contained. Contained? Anger sparked through my panic. What does that mean? It means you stay away until this blows over. What about Mikhail? Mikhail doesn't need this circus. Neither do you. He paused. I'll wire you 2 months severance. That should give you time to find something else. My world tilted. You're firing me? I'm protecting you. These people will tear you apart. They're already digging into your background, calling your former employers, harassing your family. So you're just giving up? My voice cracked. You're throwing me away because it got hard? I'm doing what's best for everyone involved. His composure finally shattered. Do you understand what they'll do to you if you stay connected to me? They'll destroy your reputation, your career, and chance you have at a normal life. I don't want a normal life. I was crying now, angry tears streaming down my face. I want this life. With you and Mikhail. I don't care what they say. Well, I care. His voice went cold again. This is my decision. Stay away from my He hung up. I stared at my phone, unable to process what just happened. He'd ended it. Just like that. After everything, after Mikhail's drawings, after his promises, after telling me he trusted me, he'd cut me out the moment things got difficult. The next 24 hours were hell. My phone never stopped. Reporters found my apartment. Someone leaked my address online. I holed up inside, curtains drawn, watching my life implode on social media. Then, late the next morning, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Cyrus Hale calls emergency press conference. I turned on the live stream with shaking hands. Cyrus stood at a podium, looking exhausted but determined. Behind him, a simple backdrop with the Hale Enterprises logo. He waited for the room to quiet, then spoke. I've built my career on honesty and integrity. So I'm going to be honest now. He looked directly into the camera. The man in those photos is Derek Evans. He's my son's tutor, yes. But he's also someone who's changed our lives in ways I didn't think possible. My heart stopped. 6 months ago, my son was isolated, struggling to connect with a world that didn't understand him. Derek really saw him in a way no one else had. He didn't just learn sign language for a job. He learned it because he genuinely cares about my son's well-being. Cyrus's voice strengthened. And yes, in the process I developed feelings for him. Deep feelings. The kind I didn't think I was capable of anymore. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Cyrus ignored them. If that makes some of you uncomfortable, that's your burden to carry, not ours. My son is thriving. I'm happier than I've been in years. And Derek Evans is the reason for both. He paused, then looked directly at the camera again. Derek, if you're watching this, and I hope you are, please come home. We need you. I need you. And I'm sorry for being a coward yesterday. The press conference erupted. I sat frozen, tears streaming freely now. He'd just come out publicly, risked his reputation, his business relationships, everything. For me, I grabbed my keys and ran. The drive to his house was a blur. When I arrived, reporters still crowded the gate, but security let me through immediately. And there, standing in the driveway like he'd been waiting, was Cyrus. I barely got out of the car before he was there, pulling me into his arms. I'm sorry, he whispered into my hair. I panicked. I thought pushing you away would protect you. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. I held him tighter. You scared me. I scared myself. He pulled back to look at me. I love you. I should have said that first. I love you. I love you too, I whispered back. We stood there, holding each other while cameras flashed beyond the gate, and for the first time in 24 hours I could breathe again. 6 months changes everything. The media storm eventually died down, replaced by newer scandals and shinier controversies. Some of Cyrus's business associates dropped him. Others, surprisingly, reached out with support. His company's stock dipped initially, then stabilized, then actually rose as younger demographics praised his authenticity. But the real changes happened at home. Mikkel flourished. His new school was perfect. Small classes, teachers fluent in ASL, kids who didn't see his deafness as a limitation. He came home every day bursting with stories about his friends. Signs he'd learned, games they'd played. The lonely, invisible boy from that corporate event was gone, replaced by a confident, joyful kid. And me? I officially moved in 3 months ago. My tiny apartment was costing a fortune anyway, Cyrus had argued. The commute was ridiculous. Mikkel wanted me there. It made sense practically, but we both knew it was more than practical. I woke up in Cyrus's bed now, his arm around my waist. Had breakfast with both of them, helped Mikkel get ready for school. Spent afternoons working on my graphic design projects in the study while Cyrus handled business calls. We'd become a unit. A family in ways I'd never expected. Today was special though. Are you nervous? Cyrus asked, adjusting his tie in the mirror. Terrified, I admitted. What if he changes his mind? He won't. Cyrus turned, cupping my face. He's been asking about this for weeks. Trust me. The lawyer arrived at 10. Miss Chen, specialist in family law, with kind eyes and a warm demeanor. She spent an hour explaining the process. The paperwork, the timeline. Mikkel sat between us swinging his legs, occasionally signing questions. So, Miss Chen said finally, the co-guardianship papers are ready to file. Once processed, Derek will have equal legal rights regarding Mikkel's care, education, and medical decisions. She looked at Mikkel. Do you understand what this means, sweetie? Mikkel signed, Derek will be my real parent. Like Papa. Exactly. She smiled. Is that what you want? Mikkel's response was to launch himself at me, hugging tight. I looked at Cyrus over Mikhail's head, my eyes burning. Yeah. I signed when Mikhail pulled back. That's exactly what I want. The paperwork took another hour. Signatures, initials, official stamps. When it was done, Miss Chen shook all our hands, even Mikhail's, and promised the finalization within 6 weeks. After she left, Mikhail ran to his room and returned with a wrapped box. He thrust it at me, bouncing excitedly. Inside was a framed drawing. New, more sophisticated than his earlier work. It showed our house, all three of us in front. And a dog. At the top, the Hale Evans family. When did you make this? I signed. Last week, Papa said you were going to be my other dad, officially. So I wanted it to be special. He paused, then signed shyly. Can we really get a puppy now? Cyrus and I exchanged looks. We'll discuss it, Cyrus signed, trying to look stern and failing completely. That evening, after Mikhail was asleep, Cyrus and I sat on the terrace. The city spread below us, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. He handed me a glass of wine and settled beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. I never thought I'd have this again, he said quietly. After everything fell apart the first time, I built walls. Told myself Mikhail and I were fine alone. That we didn't need men else. And now I can't imagine life without you in it. He turned to face me. You didn't just teach Mikhail to communicate, you taught me how to open up again. How to trust. How to love. I set down my wine and took his hand. You taught me what home feels like. What family means. Before you two, I was just existing. Going through motions. Now I'm living. Cyrus pulled a small box from his pocket. My breath caught. Before you panic, he said quickly. This isn't that kind of proposal. We've only been together 8 months. I'm not rushing that. He opened the box to reveal a simple silver band. But this is a promise. That I'm in this for the long term. That we're building something real together. That when the time is right, when we're both ready, I will ask you properly. The ring was beautiful, understated but elegant. I let him slide it onto my right hand, then pulled him into a kiss that tasted like wine and promises. I'm holding you to that, I whispered against his lips. Good. We sat there for a while longer, comfortable in silence, his hand in mine. Inside, I could hear Mikhail stirring, probably getting water. The house felt alive in a way it never had before, filled with noise and love and chaos and joy. Hey, Cyrus said suddenly. Remember that first night? At the gala? When you were terrifying and I was awkward? He smiled. I went home that night and couldn't stop thinking about you. The way you saw Mikhail, really saw him, not as a disability or a problem, but as a person worth knowing. He was impossible not to see. But everyone else managed it just fine. Cyrus shook his head. I ran a background check on you that night. Comprehensive. And everything came back clean, but I still didn't trust it. Didn't trust you. I was so sure you'd be like everyone else, there for a paycheck. Gone when it got hard. I almost left, I admitted. After that first week, I was overwhelmed. Worried I'd mess up. That I wasn't qualified enough. What made you stay? Mikhail drew me a picture of a dinosaur. Wrote thank you for being my friend at the bottom. I smiled at the memory. How do you walk away from that? You don't, Cyrus said softly. You build your entire life around making sure that kid keeps smiling. Exactly. A crash from inside made us both jump. We rushed in to find Mikhail in the kitchen, sheepishly standing next to a knocked-over chair and a very guilty-looking expression. I wanted cookies, he signed. For celebrating. Cyrus tried to look disapproving. It's 10 o'clock at night, but it's a special day. Mikhail's eyes went wide and pleading. Please? I looked at Cyrus. He looked at me. We both cracked. Fine, I signed. But just 2, and we're all having them together. We sat around the kitchen island, eating cookies and milk, Mikhail chattering away about his friend Marcus at school and the science project they were planning. Normal, domestic, perfect. This was my family. Not by blood, not by traditional means, but by choice. By love. By showing up every day and choosing each other over and over again. And I'd fight to protect it with everything I had. Later, after Mikhail was truly asleep and Cyrus was working late in his study, I stood in the doorway of Mikhail's room watching him sleep. His drawings covered the walls now. Our family in 100 different iterations. Always together. Always smiling. I felt Cyrus come up behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. Our son, he whispered. Our son, I agreed. And that was everything.